is, can Oregon stack up to Michigan's physicality? And we've heard that from the summers. Like, how's Oregon going to handle the physicality of the Big Ten? Well, as we sit here right now, they're the number one team in the country. They're 8-0. They've handled the Big Ten physicality fairly well when you look at the win against Ohio State and the fact that both Illinois and Purdue could not punch back in either of those two games, one of which being Illinois, that's going to go to a bowl game and was the number 20 team in the country, and they couldn't punch back. Oregon seemed pretty physical in that game against Illinois. To me, the biggest concern for Oregon is the little thing that we don't want to talk about, and that is the other shoe ultimately going to drop when it comes to travel? I'm very lucky. I do not travel for my job. I don't get on a plane for my job, but I know people that do. And people that travel for a living, even the fact that Oregon is going to be taking a chartered flight and a fancy bus to a very nice hotel, right? They're not traveling like most of us. Right? They're not taking off their shoes at TSA. Unless you're pre-check, but the pre-check line always seems to be longer than the regular line. And if everybody's TSA pre-check, then what is TSA regular check? Anyways, don't have time to talk about that. But they're not slogging it through, sitting in uncomfortable chairs, waiting for a flight that maybe is delayed 45 minutes. Like that's not how they're traveling. But still, leaving the comforts of home, traveling 3 time zones again, to me, that's the biggest concern for Oregon in this game. Oregon, I believe, is better at every phase of football. Michigan is going to have a stout offensive and defensive line. I think Oregon's better. Not mountains better, but I think Oregon's better. Michigan's changing their quarterback again. I think this is they started with this. I can't even remember who the quarterback is now. Because they started with this guy, went to Alex Orji, and now they're back. So they broke up, got the rebound, girlfriend, and now they're back to the original. So Michigan's continuing with their quarterback carousel. To me, the only concern is going to be travel. It's also, again, supposed to be looking at Michigan Stadium, 55 and sunny. But I just worry, is the other shoe going to drop when it comes to the travel? Maybe it was a convenient narrative that certain teams were losing as they traveled a couple of time zones. Or maybe it's just that Autzen going to be a tough place to go in and get a win. And on the flip side, USC, UCLA, and Washington just aren't as good. Right? Because that was the early part of it, Brendan. There was like, oh, USC, they lose because they're traveling to the East Coast. Like, or maybe USC's just not that good. Indiana did not have a problem traveling out to UCLA and kicking the dog out of them. So, I don't know. That's my only concern is travel, which could lead to sluggishness, which goes back to my original point, which you get into November, you all of a sudden get into a tight ball game. How do you handle it? Now, Oregon was in a tight ball game against Ohio State, but that was expected. You go into those games understanding that it's going to be down to the wire. This is the rat poison that Nick Saban talked about forever and ever and ever. People always misunderstood what Nick Saban talked about. They thought, oh, Nick Saban hates the media. He calls them rat poison. That's not what he was talking about. What Nick Saban was talking about was through the media and now through social media, do players start paying attention to how much better they are supposed to be? Because when you go into a game where you are supposed to be winning by 2 touchdowns, and all of a sudden you're not, well, then emotion becomes a factor. You start freaking out. You know what? Start to get a little tighter. In a close game where you're going up against Ohio State, you know that it's going to be down to the wire. You're going on the road. You're favored by 14. And if you don't think these kids understand who is favored and who is not, you're mistaken. That's the other worry I would have is, do you get into a ball game and all of a sudden you start thinking, wait, we're supposed to be beating these guys by 3 touchdowns. What's going on? How do they handle that? Other than that, if the Michigan players were not wearing the Michigan uniforms, if they were wearing, I don't know, if they were wearing Michigan State uniforms, I don't know if there would be as much of a concern. Do you think 14.5 is too high? Slaughter Sportsbook? Let's consult with the SSB. You think 14.5 is too high? Oregon on the road?
No, I think it's accurate. I think it's fine. About what I'd project them to be.
I think there's some people that are like, boy, that seems like a lot. And I think, honestly, that's the winged helmets of Michigan, is what I think it is. I think if you took those Michigan players, put them in Iowa jerseys, there would be no concern on Oregon and a 14-point spread. But that's where we're at there. Other games of interest, other games of note. Looking at Boise plays tonight. They're at home against San Diego State. And looking at Boise's schedule, as crazy as it sounds, the only team that I think is going to have the ability to push back against Boise is going to be, Brennan, is going to be your Beavs the day after Thanksgiving. And
Interesting. Yeah.
Because San Diego State, this is a 20-some point spread right now, right? 23-point spread for San Diego State. Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming. And what's going to be interesting, and we're obviously going to talk about it coming up in a handful of weeks, how's Boise going to be approaching that 9 a.m.? Well, I guess that would be 10 a.m. local in Boise, right? There, Mountain Time.
Getting Gentia Heisman. I mean, we ran through it yesterday. Oregon State has 2 winnable games left on their schedule. Maybe 3 if you can sell yourself, but that, the fact that Oregon State even has to play that's going to be a very rough morning on the blue. I'll just say
You think so?
Yes. That's why they think they have a 9% chance to win that game, and I think that's pretty accurate. So, yeah, it's going to be a real tough one. So,
well, and we talked about it a ton. What's more?
Also, I'm hoping for snow. I've never seen the Beavers play in snow. I want to see that happen either this year or next year when they're at the Palouse super late in the year for the
second time they play.
Yeah. So I'd love to see some snow. Need to see some snow.
I mean, it's almost kind of like what you would want. Like, you want that game to turn into a slobber knocker, right? Let's ugly it up and hopefully it gets close. But Boise is going to be interesting because same reason I was talking about these other teams, but they know they kind of control their own destiny to get to the playoff. And from a Boise fan's perspective, this is all of their dreams, right? This goes back to the late 90s. This goes back to the mid-2000s. This goes back to Dirk Cutter, to Dan Hawkins. It's a Big 12. Look it up. This goes back to Chris Peterson. This goes back to all those times where Boise State was saying, should we sue the BCS? How come we can't keep going undefeated? We need a playoff. Well, there it is. You got it right in front of your hands. And you might have a guy who wins the Heisman Trophy. I'm very interested, and I think I know the answer. And we'll see what happens tonight. But I'm very interested how Boise handles Ashton Genty's load, how they handle his usage rate, I guess. Because you could continue to hand him the football and just tack on yards upon yards upon. I mean, you're playing San Diego, you're playing Nevada, you're playing San Jose, you're playing Wyoming. And no offense, and Brendan, you understand, the Beavs run defense, not that great either. And I think that's putting it kindly. Like, you have 5 opportunities for massive, massive games for Ashton Genty. But do you worry you use him too much? Do you worry you wear him down at the end? Because getting to the playoff is cool. You know what's cooler? Winning a playoff game. So I'll be fascinated to see what happens with Boise and how they handle his his usage rate. The big game, 9 a.m. local. It's the big noon kickoff. Ohio State goes to Penn State. Ohio State favored by 3. Massive playoff implications in this game. As nuts as it sounds, is this an elimination game for Ohio State? If Ohio State can't beat Penn State, if they lose this game, they have Purdue, Northwestern. Let's say they beat Indiana at home and then beat Michigan. With everything that's going on in college football, does 10-2 Ohio State get in? They definitely go from clearly in, looking for a rematch against Oregon. They go to the college football bubble with a loss in this game. And Penn State has the more importantly, James Franklin has a huge opportunity of like, are they still the Penn State that we have seen over the last 7 years? Which is, you're really good against everybody else, and then good Ohio State or good Michigan just kicks your teeth in. So I'm fascinated to see what happens in that game. That game is a 3-point spread. The one interesting game I have in the SEC, Texas A&M is coming off of a massive win. All right, Texas A&M just had a massive come-from-behind win against LSU. Texas A&M has bounced back after the Week 1 loss to Notre Dame to beat then number 5 Missouri. They beat a top 10 LSU. They are currently leading the SEC. They're going on the road to South Carolina, a team that is pretty good, not great. South Carolina, not a playoff team, but a team that can punch back. They beat Oklahoma last week 35-9. Now, I don't think Oklahoma's very good. I watch out for upset alert for Texas A&M, and that's not really being out there. That's not very hot takey because it's a 3-point spread. But this has got college football trap game written all over it. Texas A&M changes quarterbacks in the second half, gets a massive emotional come-from-behind win against LSU. Coach goes on a 90-minute wrestling promo about how we are real and we're not fake. And now all of a sudden everybody's like, can Texas A&M win the SEC? And then you go to South Carolina, and South Carolina's just waiting. Because you had the surprise in changing quarterbacks to a run-heavy quarterback as opposed to a dual-threat quarterback. Now South Carolina's got a little bit of film on you. I think South Carolina beats Texas A&M this weekend. I do. I like the other USC. Any other games intrigue you? You're on a bye week for the Beavs. Any other games intrigue you this weekend?
Yeah, like the Miami-Duke game is interesting. I think that's a very high spread. I could see Duke playing Miami closer than that.
Yeah, when does Mario Cristobal a game? You know what I mean?
Well, they're still my pick to make the playoffs. So I don't know if they will. And again, Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, pretty good 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Indiana will beat Michigan State by 60.
So you're hammering that 8-point spread, is what you're saying?
Well, they'll get hammered. So it'll be one really elite coach against a coach that should have maybe stayed put where he was. But yeah, I mean, A&M. I think A&M's that's a little hot. Especially after their big win over LSU.
But that's what I'm saying. Such a massive spike, and then you got to go on the road to South Carolina when everybody's telling you how great you are. That's what I'm saying.
Probably SMU Pitt. Other than that, not. That's kind of what gets me going for games this weekend.
I don't know why. Kansas State at Houston. Houston's not very good. They're 3-5. But it's at Houston. And these are those games where you start to see those weird upsets where Kansas State, do you start looking ahead because they've got Houston, they got Arizona State, they got Cincinnati, they got Iowa State. But really everything in front of them for Kansas State to get to the Big 12 championship with a freshman quarterback. I think he's a freshman. His name's Avery Johnson. I believe he's a freshman quarterback. That game's interesting to me. I'm not going to go all crazy and go upset alert. I'm saying, a lot of people feel like Kansas State is going to, I'm looking at the playoff predictor, right? They're at a 40% to make the playoff. Iowa State and BYU, the only other Big 12 schools ahead of Kansas State. This is where it gets real tricky for some teams. And then Louisville at Clemson. Does Clemson have it figured out? Did Dabo get it figured out this year? 10-point spread at home, but...
Yeah, I mean, I don't really believe in Louisville, so yeah, I think Clemson should roll.
I think there's going to be some game where there's maybe a double-digit spread, and Lord help me if it's Oregon, but I think there's going to be a game where all of a sudden you're just going to see it get real tight real fast, and you're going to see a team maybe heading to the bubble. And it might be Clemson, it might be Texas A&M, it might be Kansas State, but there's a game in there where a team's going to be headed to the bubble. We are going to be heading to On Campus as we wrap up hour number 1 next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up hour number one. A lot of college football games on Saturday with some playoff fingerprints. Obviously, the Penn State-Ohio State game is the biggest one of the weekend. Oregon heading to the Big House to face Michigan. Anytime the number one team in the country goes on the road, that's a fairly significant game. But other interesting twists and turns with regard to the college football playoff. It is time for us to now go on campus. All right, so the other thing about the playoff that a lot of people were not all that happy about, but I actually liked, and that is the fact that they kept one spot open for the group of five. Currently, right now, Boise is without a doubt the leader. They're a 61% chance to make the college football playoff. Next group of five team, and this is according to the playoff predictor, is Army at 21%, and then Tulane at 11%, and UNLV at 9%. So I guess I was thinking about it as we were talking about Boise a bit last segment. Does Boise, with the close loss to Oregon, do they have a buffer in terms of like being able to drop a game? Because if they drop one of their games the rest of the way out and still win the Mountain West, I think they still get in. I think Boise still gets in. I think they still have a path, as they say.
I don't know if a two-loss team who's not in a power conference is going to make it in.
But hear me out. Boise wins the Mountain West, right? Army loses. Tulane loses. UNLV will have lost in a Mountain West championship potentially. Who goes? Who goes as the group of six team?
Probably the one-loss Army team.
You think one-loss Army team would – well, so Army plays Notre Dame, and then they would play Navy. That would be – could you imagine if it came down to Army-Navy but not in the Army-Navy game in the American Conference?
It'd be interesting.
And then one team, like, let's live in a world where Boise, they slip up and they lose. Or let's just say Boise runs through the season, gets to the Mountain West Championship, loses. They're not getting in as an at-large. You have to win the conference to get in if you're Boise. So they lose the Mountain West Conference Championship. Is that game in Vegas? I think it's in Vegas. They lose that game. It could come down to Army-Navy in the American Championship. I don't know where that game's at. One of those teams could make the college football playoff, and then they play each other in essentially an exhibition game, which is one of the biggest games in college football. This is nuts. That could be crazy.
Because it's not like Boise is going to be challenged the rest of the way.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're going to be double-digit favorites in almost every game they play the rest of the way out. The other interesting wrinkle here that we haven't quite talked about, and that's Notre Dame. Notre Dame obviously does not have a conference championship, so there are 5 spots. If I'm doing my math right, for 12 teams, there are 5 spots guaranteed for conference championships. So now we're down to 7. I got to imagine loser of the Big Ten championship, loser of the SEC championship, both of them get in. So now we're down to 5 spots. If Miami and Clemson play each other in the ACC championship game, I think both of them get in as well. So now we're down to 4 spots. Is there any way, shape, or form that Notre Dame at 11-1 with a loss to Northern Illinois, but a win over Texas A&M. Is there any way, shape, or form Notre Dame gets left out at 11-1? Because we talked about it yesterday. The committee has said they are not going to punish teams for losing the championship game. So, for my money, SEC championship game, Big Ten championship game, the two winners get buys. The two losers of those games, they're in. And then you might have potentially one-loss Indiana out there. You might have a potentially one-loss Penn State out there. You have you might have a one-loss Iowa State out there. Wouldn't it be crazy if the Notre Dame Northern Illinois game from week 2 comes back to bite the Fighting? I don't think there's any way Notre Dame gets left out at 11-1. I just think there's too much money, too much power, too much influence. And obviously the games are going to be played, and we will find out ultimately where they're at. But right now, Notre Dame's sitting at a 60% chance. That's good, not great.
I do have to note, Justin.
Yeah.
Just like yesterday, Washington State appears on this.
I don't know why they do. I for the life of me, I don't know why they do.
Because I think it's still possible.
Okay? In 30 seconds, give me your path for Washington State.
I mean, they went out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's it. They went out. They're, 11?
They'd be 11-1.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to, but
Yeah.
they'll be in that mix.
I just think the committee, if it came down to it, do you think 10-2 Alabama, 11-1 Washington State? Like those are going to be the teams that they're going to be compared against. That's why I don't understand why they have the 10% on there. It makes no sense to me. Maybe I'm missing something, which is possible. I don't see how.
Yeah, I'm just not gonna write them off because they're going to win their next 3 games handedly, and they're going to be 11-1. So I'm curious to see where they ultimately land.
But do you think an 11-1 Washington State would get in over a 2-loss Power 4 team?
I don't think they will. They maybe should have a case, but that's a different argument.
Yeah, that's why I don't understand why they got 10% on there. Maybe I'm wrong. Keep living that dream, Kook fans. Keep living the dream. We have got hour number 2 with Cam Mellor coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio.
7 a.m. on a Friday. Brendan Slaughter with you for Rip City Mornings. The New York Jets took down the Houston Texans 21-13 to snap a 5-game losing streak and improve to 3-5 on the year, while Houston falls to 6-2 on the season. Your Portland Trailblazers return to action tonight against the Oklahoma City Thunder at Moda Center. Tip-off at 7 and pregame right here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Coming up in about 20 minutes, we're going to catch up with Cam Mellor, talk some college football. You got hour 2, Rip City Mornings.
And a very happy Friday. Welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully, you're all having a fantastic first day of November. Hopefully, Halloween was okay. Got one trick-or-treater, Brendan. I got one. Kid in a very scary mask. Scared the daylights out of me. Got one. Neighborhood kids did not brave the elements. Is free candy enough of an incentive anymore, I wonder?
Not in that weather.
Yeah, that's what I'm just...
Not in that weather. I walked my dog last night, and I'm like, nope. It's like...
But, like, take
in,
yourself...
out. And I think if that's the case, we had more trick-or-treaters than you, but I didn't answer the door, so...
Take yourself back to when you were, like, 9 years old, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, the idea, at least for me, the idea of free candy, I would have been like, what did they say in the post? Like, nor rain, nor snow, nor sleet, nor dark of night will stop the mailman or whatever. That was me when I was like 9 years old. There shall be no way. But I wonder, like, they have Halloween parties at school. I've heard of there's now a thing called trunk or treat, where like the parents show up at school with, and you just open up the back of of your car, and there's like they get candy that way. There's like 17 ways from Sunday to get free candy on Halloween. So I guess maybe braving the elements on the actual day that was Halloween, but not a lot of action in the Myers household. Fine, more Reese's candy for me.
Yeah, no.
Until I get sick of it, then I'm going to give you a whole big bag.
Yeah, it was very quiet, very rainy, very wet. A few people came to our door, and they were greeted with some dum-dums. Yeah.
Kid had a very scary mask. I think it was the neighbor kid. I couldn't tell, obviously. Scared the daylights out of me. I was like, here, get some candy. Get out of here.
But yeah, the bad weather will do that to a Halloween.
I mean,
I'll be honest, Justin.
Because I wonder, like, the kids these days are soft, and I'll just say that right now, as a grumpy old man. But I also think there's so many other opportunities with school and neighborhood parties and everything. Like, you probably already got all the candy before you even get to Halloween. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just remember as a kid, it definitely, I must have got lucky, because I sure don't remember my giant pillowcase full of candy coming back wet.
You're a pillowcase guy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Then that would stay under the bed for 6 months. Oh, yeah, solid.
Oh, dude, my mom was, she was candy communist. I'll tell you right now. Candy communist. Everybody came home. All the candy went into communal bowl. Said communal bowl went up on top of the fridge, and it was doled out equally. Candy communist, my mom was. We're going to talk to Cam Mellor coming up in about 15 minutes. Get his thoughts on Oregon, Michigan. Get his thoughts on some of the other playoff scenarios. And I guess I'll ask him too. And maybe I'm the one that's missing it. I don't know. But I am looking at the College Football Network that Cam Mellor, he runs the College Football Network. He's executive director. They've got a playoff predictor as well. They got Washington State at a 25% chance to make the playoff. I don't get it. Maybe I'm missing something, so we'll talk to Cam about that, plus thoughts on Oregon's chance to win the national championship and other games to be keeping an eyeball on. That's coming up in about 15 minutes. Stuff we saw on the internet and some Hot Take Friday coming up as well. Speaking of stuff I saw on the internet, Things aren't going so well in Milwaukee with the Bucks. So the Grizzlies beat the Bucks last night, 122-99. Giannis did drop in 37 and 10, but Ja Morant went off for a triple-double, 26, 10, and 14. The Bucks are 1-4. And just like in baseball, it's interesting, like when teams come out of the gate slow and fans start freaking out and start worrying, and the Bucks they're 1-4. 5 of those games were on the road. They lost on the road to the Nets, the Celtics, and then the Grizzlies. They come back for a homestand. I think it will ultimately be figured out, but I see rumblings and rumors already circling around the Milwaukee Bucks. Is Giannis on the trading block? I saw CBS Sports drop that just yesterday, that there are potential rumblings that Doc Rivers may not be the guy. So we're going to go through this song and dance again. I feel like we just did this with the Milwaukee Bucks, and that maybe the Bucks shut everything down and trade Giannis away. I don't know. I found it interesting. We're 5 games into the season. We're already hearing Giannis might get traded by the Bucks, and that was CBS. I mean, it's NBA rumors, but I don't know.
I mean, the part of me that was like, good luck, Dame, when he thought going to win a title was going to be so much easier elsewhere. The real big skeptics, glass half empty people, Justin, saw this coming and were like, oh, you guys hire Doc Rivers, whose legacy post 2008 is collapsing in the playoffs. You have a team outside of Giannis that is over the age of 30, very old. You don't like I just don't see it, man. Not in the East, not with Jason Tatum and company there. No one's beating the Celtics, so I think it's so in
the East you've got the Celtics and the Knicks.
And I
think those two teams are the two best teams. Then you've got the Pacers and the Cavs that are both, I think, better than the Bucks. Celtics or Pacers, Cavs.
See,
I like both of those teams.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd like them better than the Bucks. The only other team I say I like better than the Bucks on talent alone is the Sixers. When you can get Paul George, Embiid, and Maxey going, that's a trio that can, if they click, that's a trio that can cause the league some problems.
I mean, because like right now in the NBA, the West is in its prime, right?
Yeah.
Oklahoma City Thunder is right in its prime. Phoenix, still there. Golden State, we'll see what happens there, but Houston's on the way up. Dallas was just in the finals. I'm not writing off Ja and Memphis quite yet. I still think Anthony Edwards has got 4 or 5 more years of him being potentially the best player in the NBA. The Kings can put up points on and the Nuggets are still the Nuggets. So, yeah, you look, and don't forget, Wemby is in San Antonio, and if he stays healthy, you still have Zion in New Orleans. So, yeah, the West is in their prime. But when you look at the Celtics are the best team in basketball right now, I would imagine. But just based on roster. We're a week into the season, but the Celtics are the best team in the NBA. I may just be a hating you-know-what hater when it comes to the Sixers, who are 1-3, by the way. I think the Knicks are the second best team in the East. I could see why someone would say Philadelphia. I still think it's the Knicks. But you've got Cleveland, Indianapolis, Orlando on the way up. Miami is always just going to be hanging around. And then you got Detroit rebuilding, Toronto rebuilding. Are the Nets rebuilding? They kind of got rid of everybody that was good, right? The Nets rebuilding. Like, the Bucks may be in that spot that we have become so familiar with here in the Pacific Northwest, where you're not as good as the elite teams, but all of a sudden the teams that are below you are pulling the plug and rebuilding, and you're sitting there at about 6th or 7th place.
All I
for
gotta
a
say
while.
is that draft pick Portland's got coming in from Milwaukee in 2027, 28. Oh,
Yeah,
it's looking
that's gonna-
sexier by the day.
That's
Justin.
gonna be nice.
Yeah, like
What middle school kid do we need to start looking at right now? I guess you probably
Now,
do.
I'll say
So maybe
this-
what sophomore in high
It's true.
school?
Younger than
should,
that. More
should
like an
we
eighth
start
grader.
looking at?
I think it's more like an eighth grader, which is
Eighth grade.
insane.
So I was right. Yeah. All right. So let's get the middle school film out.
Which is insane.
Is there a 7'2" French guy in middle school right now?
Well, if there is, Justin said someone will overcorrect and go to it for sure. But no, I mean, even like, I'm not going to lie, like everything is kind of going how I expected it to, just across the NBA in that regard, Justin, except for the Jazz. The Jazz are throwing a wrench into everything that I thought I knew about the NBA. But I'm like, okay, the Jazz are not going to be great, but they'll be better than the Blazers.
Mm-hmm.
Jazz are quietly like, we're going to get Cooper Flag, and y'all are, I mean.
Well, they're 0-5.
It's not looking
They
good.
just lost their starting two guard for the season. He broke his leg.
That was bad.
Lauri Markkanen's out. With I saw he.
I guess I'm saying it might be tough to be worse. I'm not saying. Well, I mean, I know the goals and whatnot, but Blazers are kind of racing to the bottom this year, in my opinion. Justin, it might be hard to get below them.
I know it's November, and talking playoff basketball in November is a bit
trivial.
is a bit trivial, but it is. Think about this. The Blazers aren't making the playoffs, and the Jazz probably aren't making the playoffs. But in the West, San Antonio, L.A., Clippers, Pelicans, Nuggets, Kings, Grizzlies, Lakers, Rockets. Like there's 8 teams right there. 3 of them ain't making the playoffs. 2 of them are making the play-in. And they're all fairly good teams.
Like I said, I'm curious just to kind of see, like you said, there's a few teams that are starting to show some elite stuff, Justin. Like, again, you mentioned Boston, Cleveland. And, even like I said, you look at the Blazers, right? Like we were talking about with Sean, they've been more competitive than I thought, minus kind of that opening Warriors.
The opening night disaster, yeah.
But, like, if you go, like, going back real quickly to, like, for instance, like the Jazz are, like, the worst team in the West. Justin, they're getting outscored by 20 points a game.
Yeah, they
like that's bad.
What is it? Their point differential is negative 17.2.
Like, that's so bad.
Next lowest
That's bad.
in the. Care to guess what the next lowest is in the NBA? They're minus 17.2 in point differential.
Okay, give me
Care to guess the next lowest?
Yeah, give me a hint. West or East?
East.
Ooh, is it Pistons?
It is not the Pistons.
Oh, wow.
The Pistons are 1-4, point differential of -4.
It's not the Raptors, is it?
Raptors are close, -8 for the Raptors.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure. I got nothing.
It's Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh, that's not good.
The Milwaukee Bucks
Oops. That's not good.
have the, and again,
Small sample size.
small sample
I
size,
get
and they
that.
play 5 games on the road.
Yeah, I get
To start the season, and it's an older team.
that is tough.
And Doc Rivers, not like, just get us somewhat competitive, keep us in the mix, and then, but something to keep an eye on there
Yes,
with the
is.
Milwaukee Bucks, because it wasn't like I got NBA Central, the fake one. I didn't I looked and it was like CBS Sports NBA rumors. Giannis might be on the trading block. And I'm like, a week into the season? All right. We've got a couple hours because Boise State plays tonight, and then we've got obviously a full slate of college football to talk about tomorrow with Cam Miller from the College Football Network. He joins us next on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, tomorrow, 12:30, Oregon kicks off against Michigan at the Big House as the number one team in the nation. The Oregon Ducks look to continue their undefeated season. There's a massive game in Penn State with the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions in the Big Ten. And there are, while Halloween is over, a handful of potential nightmare scenarios looking ahead to the college football playoff. Joining us now to talk about all that and so much more, friend of the program, the executive director of the College Football Network, Cam Mellor, back on the big show. Good morning, Cam. How you doing?
Good morning, and I'm great. I believe it's November already, which is crazy to me, but excited for some Friday night football, but also ultimately the big one on Saturday.
Well, we were talking about right before we brought you on, and it's like, yeah, we felt like we had Cam on. It's like, no, that was it was right before Labor Day is the last time we had you on, because it is kind of how it works. Like, college football happens, we all get in our routines. It's Labor Day, we're all excited, we do the countdown, you blink, and it's like, oh yeah, we're in November. It's Thanksgiving. There's a there's a handful of games left, and obviously what we're going to be talking about is the college football playoff, which is obviously now with all of these teams and implications, it's just nuts how fast the first 2 months of the season goes.
It's nuts how much we've seen and how much we've learned from these teams, and it's also, I still think at this point, it's crazy this year how much we still don't know about a lot of these teams. That maybe I'm looking right at like Texas A&M, which they've not figured out their quarterback situation yet, but they're the outright leader in the SEC. So what a fun season it's been.
All right, so let's start with Oregon. They are having an unbelievable season. They got the win against Ohio State. They, of course, back it up on the road against Purdue, and then really hammered Illinois, which surprised me a bit. Not that they won the game or that they covered, but kind of the way that they went about it. And Cam, I've been, pounding the table for years and years and years that the whole Oregon is a fast finesse team and a gimmicky team. Like, that ended 12 years ago when Chip Kelly left to the Philadelphia Eagles. And since Mario Cristobal came in and then Dan Lanning after that, both of those guys have been trying to build SEC and Big Ten-like teams. And Dan Lanning, I think, has done it. I am still surprised that I keep hearing from kind of prominent college football people that, how is Oregon going to be able to handle the physicality of Michigan at the Big House? It's like, have you not been watching Oregon this year? Like, they've handled everybody's physicality. Does that surprise you that that's still the narrative around the Ducks?
Yeah, it just leans into the narrative that not everybody watches all the games, and they only watch the SEC games at this point. I don't understand it, and if you're not watching the Oregon Ducks, you're missing out on probably, this feels like when Aiden Hutchinson had a Heisman-like season, but it's for Derek Harmon, and it's up the middle, which is unbelievable to me to watch how dominant he's become and how awesome he's been on just a purely per-snap basis. So people are missing out. Honestly, they're controlling the trenches. This is, I feel like we talked a lot about this season about teams like Illinois and their social media fan base saying, you really think going into Austin's going to be that hard for us? We've seen it. And then they get the wake-up call when that happens, and the Oregon team is built like a Big Ten team who's going to win the Big Ten, and honestly do it the way the Big Ten teams have done in the past with defensive and offensive line play.
I will say this, Cam. It has been the funnest part because I was there at Autzen for both the Ohio State and the Illinois game, and I saw the Ohio State fans looking around going like, oh, yeah, this whole thing is for real. And then to see Illinois, it's like, we've been doing this for a while out here in the Pacific Northwest, and by the way, the Big Ten, when Washington ultimately gets pretty good, they're going to have to go to Husky Stadium too, which is no treat. It's interesting that these Big Ten fan bases come out and they go, well, it's just the math, the numbers, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, Autzen's for real. Washington, when Washington gets good, Husky Stadium is going to be for real. Is it just that maybe the Big Ten is a bit, I know I don't like to use the word, a bit overrated in terms of like atmosphere at their games? Because I saw a ton of Ohio State fans freaking out at Autzen Stadium a couple of weeks ago.
As someone who lives in Columbus, Ohio, and has been to a couple different venue types or game types at Ohio State, I've been to one where they played Akron, and the fans there for the first 10 minutes are pretty loud and pretty fun. But then it just dies off and it goes away immediately. And then I've been to the big games in which they don't even care about the atmosphere, really. It's just about a number for them. And I will stick to this moment. It was a blackout game, and it was, I got up to go to the bathroom, and I came back, and my seat had 5 new people in it. And it's just they put as many people as they can in the seats for a number. So, yeah, it's absolutely the biggest difference is not just 110,000 people. It's 58,000 people at Austin that care, and every single person is screaming at the same exact. I mean, it feels different, right? Games in the ACC feel different than games in the Big Ten. So, yeah, I would say it's overrated, and it's all padded by these lofty numbers that they try to put in the stadium. It's not about football, really.
One more thing on the Ducks, because there's some other games I want to get your thoughts on, and that's Dillon Gabriel. I was a bit hot takey weeks 1 and 2, going like, what's going on with Gabriel? Is it maybe just that Oregon was expecting him to be exactly like Bo Nix? Was it maybe just a little too much hype? And then, lo and behold, let the new guy get his feet under him, figure some things out. He has been unbelievable this last month of the season, minus a couple of picks, but has been really one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I think the Heisman's still a 4-horse race, Cam, in Gabriel, Ward, Travis Hunter, and Genty. What is it in your mind? Where are you with Gabriel and potential of winning the Heisman? Is he still behind Travis Hunter and Genty, or is he right there in the mix?
I think he's right there in the mix. I think with Travis Hunter's resurgence after the injury, and you realize how important he is to that team, he single-handedly is taking votes away from his quarterback as well, who probably rightfully deserves to be in the race as well, Shedeur Sanders. But to me, Gabriel has every chance. They have to win out, and I think they have to look impressive in this one against Michigan, and then they have to look impressive against, Indiana, Penn State, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game as well. So I think that he's got a couple of Heisman moments here going up, being in the Big House, playing in the Big Ten title game. But ultimately, does this not resemble those first 2 weeks? Maybe not Bo Nix's 0-2 exact stretch, but that first game against Georgia and then getting his feet wet. He got that Eastern Washington game in 2022. I mean, this feels very similar to how Nix needed a couple of games.
Yeah.
And then obviously the rest is history. Gabriel needed a couple of games, and now the rest is likely going to be history.
Cam Miller, who's the executive director of the College Football Network, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, let's get to Happy Valley. The narrative game, Cam, is it James Franklin can't win the big game? Is it Ryan Day? And all of a sudden is Ohio State in a bit of trouble? It's fascinating that the two fan bases probably coming in with some angst with both of their head coaches, two guys that win a ton of games, by the way, and a lot of programs would like to have either of them. But it is interesting heading into this one, kind of the narrative game, right? Can Ryan Day put his foot on a team and beat Penn State, and can James Franklin win the big game? I know Drew Aller, they say potential game time decision. Feels like every time there's a game time decision with an injury, it's likely not going to play. Do you get that? I always get that feeling.
I get that feeling too. This one, I feel like they might be holding it a little bit closer to the vest. I think from what it looked like, he wanted to play last week at halftime. He wanted to come back out and play, but they understood what was the ramifications of that might have been. So I lean he likely does play, and that might be a smokescreen in this one. But at this point, I don't know how much more Aller means to them, because they don't even want to throw the ball. Really, they want to run the ball. And against Ohio State, it makes the most sense to try to run the ball, especially up the middle, and let the edge rushers sort of get upfield. And then you have Tyler Warren, probably the best pass catcher in the land or in the nation that no one's really talking about as well at tight end. So to me, it means a lot. It's your starter, obviously, but Aller, if he plays, I don't know how much they try to go down the field against Ohio State secondary anyways, and how much you should do. And so to me, it's the battle of the trenches. Can those offensive linemen on the inside cause or create enough lanes for Penn State to run the ball?
It's also interesting from Ohio State's perspective. They brought in Chip Kelly to get the run game going, right? That was kind of the knock on Ryan Day. Fast players, a lot of offense, but when it comes down to it in the Big Ten, we need to run the ball. And they brought in Chip Kelly, who we are very familiar with, to bring a little zest, a little life to the run game. And it looked for a while, the first part of the season, to be going that way. And then they couldn't run the ball against Nebraska, which was a bit surprising. I know they've had some injuries on the offensive line, but is this going to be kind of one of those, assert your dominance type games? Because as you mentioned, Penn State wants to run the ball. And after what happened with Nebraska last week, I'd imagine Ohio State very much wants to run the ball. Are we going to see a rugby match against these two teams?
Yeah, if you're a betting person, I would say take the under. Even whatever the total is right now, before the betting public starts to bet it down some more, I definitely think that take the under in points. I think this is a game in which they both want to do that. I think this is also probably one of the underrated aspects from this Ohio State team this season is how poor their offensive line is. They've not been able to do what Chip Kelly wants to do offensively, and as good as your running backs are in the backfield, and that's probably the best running back duo we've seen in some time, at least on paper, going into the season, Trayvon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. The offensive line has been poor, and they've hardly caused any or created any lanes for them to run through, and so it's all been they've had to create on their own, and so I think that's an underrated aspect here. And ultimately, I think how Penn State can get it done is with their defensive front and just pinning their ears back and essentially stacking the box, because this is going to be a nightmare for Will Howard against that defensive front.
Cam Miller, Executive Director of the College Football Network, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. This weekend, I think there's a lot of teams I feel that maybe feel secure about their playoff spot, but could end up on something we've never seen before, which is the college football playoff bubble, which is going to be interesting over these next couple of weeks. To me, the team, you mentioned it a smidge earlier, Texas A&M is riding high. They kind of went away from the national stage after they lost to Notre Dame and have rattled off a bunch of wins. They replaced a quarterback at halftime and switch up to a very different offensive attack to get a come-from-behind win against LSU. Mike Elko goes on a WWE promo about how he's not some fast-talking BS and politician, which was kind of out of nowhere. And I see all of that, and then now you got to go on the road to good, not great, South Carolina. This has got trap game written all over it. Am I crazy?
No, not at all. I believe even the Vegas line has South Carolina as the potential favorite at this point, or at least it's trending that way for them to be the favorite. Shane Beamer's always good for one upset, right?
Yeah.
Is this the game? Is this that upset? Or do we see it maybe at the end of the year against the Clemson team, perhaps, and just ruin the ACC's chances completely? But I like this team. I like what they're able to do, South Carolina defensively. And I think that the secondary causes them to become a one-dimensional team for Texas A&M, and they have to run the ball. And if they cannot get the ball, they cannot stay on schedule with that run game, then, yeah, it's a hostile environment down there at the other USC, we can call them, as they like to call them on the Eastern Coast over here. But it's a hostile environment, and I think if they cannot get the ball rolling on the ground with Marcel Reed, they got to figure out the quarterback situation. It's crazy to me that they're sitting here as the SEC outright leader and still have not figured out that QB situation out.
Cam, I think one of the best stories in college football this year is Indiana, and you see a coach that is in Curt Cignetti that is very different, right? The whole, hey, I just win, Google me, kind of like what we saw with Deion Sanders, but in a different style. And I want to talk about Deion in a moment, but it feels like, especially after the way that they kind of roughed up Washington and we keep waiting for the other shoe to drop on Indiana. I know they got Ohio State on the road in Week 11, but other than that, I don't know if we see the other shoe dropping. Are we going to see Indiana in the first year under Cignetti in the college football playoff?
At this point, it's trending too, right? You lose to Ohio State, and you're still a one-loss, 11-1 Big Ten team at this point, most likely, and you get at least the 10, 11, or 12 seed right there, probably the 11 seed, depending on where they're ranked. And so, to me, so my wife is a graduate, and all of her sisters are graduates of JMU, so we have a little bit of soft spot for the Dukes. So I got to be up close and personal watching Curt Cignetti sort of build what JMU was already a national power at FCS level and then usher them into this FBS level. He builds this program, or he builds his programs to sustain as well the growth that is necessary. So he's doing it properly with veteran players in portal while also still retaining his recruiting classes. And I think this is just sort of the tip of the iceberg of what Curt Cignetti is going to bring to Indiana. We have a guy like Curtis Rourke playing the best football of his life. We knew he was talented at Ohio as well, but yeah, they're built to win, built fast in the Big Ten, and honestly, his transfer portal class and how well he's got them ready to go from week one of his first year is incredible, and I think he's the coach of the year.
Cam, I'll be perfectly honest with you and with this listening audience, and I've already talked about this earlier in the week, but when it came to Colorado last year, I was a hater. I was a hater. I felt like because of celebrity and charm, Deion kind of skipped the line. And then once he skipped the line, kind of turned around and was like, you guys, this line isn't so long. I don't know what the problem was. I was a hater. And I was there at Autzen Stadium when Oregon put it on them in Week 4. And it was really one of the funnest football games I think I've ever been to. Now, having to maybe double back and tip the white cowboy hat that Deion likes to wear, Colorado seems like they are not a flash in the pan. They do not feel like they are smoke and mirrors that I thought they were last year. Credit to Deion Sanders and what he did in the portal and what he did with the coaching staff, because I think their floor is 8-4. I think they could go 10-2 from that garbage dump of a program that was 1-11 a couple of years ago that he took over. It's as good of a turnaround as I can remember, and I have to give credit where credit is due. His ways are unorthodox, shall we say? But man, Deion Sanders has done it. He's kind of walked the walk with Colorado, hasn't he?
He has, and it's very unique to me. I think the next 4 games tell us what we need to know about the program, but ultimately what happens in those next 4 months afterwards, after Shedeur Sanders goes to the NFL, after Travis Hunter goes to the NFL. So it's maybe there's some smoke and mirrors with what he wants to do. Obviously we're going to see, and a lot will unfold. But as the football product that he's put on the field, it took a little bit of time. And obviously, I think there was a learning curve for him as well to get used to the speed of the FBS after having the success at Jackson State. And they've done it the old school way. They're starting to try to run the football a little bit more, and they're winning with these defensive ends and these defensive tackles that are getting upfield very quickly. And then ultimately, you have some hard-hitting safeties who, it looks like they relish penalties for unnecessary roughness at times with this team. They're a hard-nosed football team, and I think they don't get the credit enough for the product they put on the field outside of the top two, their 2 stars in Hunter and Shedeur. And so to me, yes, 4 games, they're all winnable on their schedule right now. That's just it's as good as he's made Colorado this year. That's just a sad state of affairs. It is the Big 12 this year.
Cam Mellor, who's the executive director of the College Football Network, and Cam, I was looking at your playoff, the College Football Network playoff meter, and so I have a question about one team, and me and my producer have had a good, healthy debate about this particular team because earlier in the week I said to the frustration of a lot of Washington State fans, which I did not know there were that many in Portland, I don't see Washington State making the college football playoff. I don't think they have a chance. You guys have them as a 24% chance in your playoff meter. I know ESPN's got them as a 10%. What am I missing? Does 11-1 without a conference championship, Washington State, did they make the playoff at 11-1? Because I can't see them getting in over what I'm assuming is going to be a lot of 10-2 Big Ten, SEC, ACC teams.
Yes, I don't see them getting in either, and I think it's so for our probability's sake, it's a simulation that simulates the rest of the season 10,000 times, and sometimes I click the button a few more times to get more than 10,000 times. But it's been fun to build that and fun to watch this and fun to learn. But I think that showcases where we are. All it's going to take for this Washington State team to make the playoffs is, yes, they have to win out. I think they have to look convincing in that last game against Oregon State, that week 13 game against Oregon State. They have to look the part because beating New Mexico, beating Utah State and Wyoming is not going to do a whole lot for you. And so I think their ceiling right now is that 12 seed, getting that 12 seed, being sort of an at-large like a G5 would be, maybe having the benefit of an Ole Miss lose, SMU lose here as well. They have to have the chips fall their right way and get a couple of losses. But I mean, with the way things have fallen and the way that those powers that are sitting right there in between 21 and 13 on the AP top 25, it could happen.
All right, there we go. All right, hey Cam, always a pleasure talking college football with you. You can follow Cam Mellor at Cam Mellor on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. You can also follow the College Football Network at CFN365, and you can hear from time to time on this show. Hey, thanks so much for your time, Cam. Have a great weekend. We'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
You will. Thanks as always.
There you go, Cam Mellor. He says Cougs got a chance. Maybe I'm just a hater. I've been a hater before, but I don't see it. But all right, so here's the one thing. We may talk about this later. I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about the Cougs. Maybe the playoff committee comes in with a different mindset than they have had in years past. And you know what? I would actually welcome that. Looking ahead. Speaking of looking ahead, we've got a Hot Take Friday coming up. Before we get to that, I do want to let you know about Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. It's red hot and rolling. Make sure you listen to Rip City Drive with Chad and Dwight from 3 to 6 each and every day, but particularly on Tuesdays for your chance to win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Trailblazer game. It is Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday here on 620 Rip City Radio. And for single game tickets, visit trailblazers.com. We wrap up hour number 2 next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, let's wrap up hour number 2. Big thanks to Cam Mellor, who joined us last segment. There's a lot of people in this world that like to say, this is a hot take. Oh, you're just a hot take artist. That's just nothing but hot takes. They're clickbait on the radio. Well, I say, you know what? This industry was built on hot takes. Hot takes then, hot takes now, hot takes forever. And we save some of our spiciest takes for this particular segment. We like to call it, oddly enough, Hot Take Friday. Here we go. All right, it is November 1st. And, 10, 15, 20 years ago, this was not a hot take, but apparently now it is. It's too early for Christmas. It is. It is too early for Christmas. I saw too much stuff last night on the internet about how now Halloween is over and we can put Halloween to bed and it is now time to start looking ahead towards Christmas. No, you cannot. It is way too early for Christmas decorations. I don't know when the official, hey, Halloween is over, put the pumpkins and the witches' brooms and the bats and all the ghouls and goblins away and get out the candy canes and get out the garland and the wreaths and the holly berries. No. We got 4 weeks, actually less than 4 weeks, till Thanksgiving comes around, and you should be waiting at least until then. But bare minimum, you got to give us a 2-week buffer from Halloween until you start. And maybe I'm talking to an audience of one. I might be talking to someone who I may live with, who might have already started looking at how they were going to start decorating for Christmas. But Brendan, just because Halloween is past us does not mean we need to start listening to Christmas carols and start dusting off the garland.
Well, Justin, I'm a company man, and K103 has got their wreath.
I know.
And the Christmas music has started.
It's too early.
Rather than go upstream, I'm leaning into it.
Well, it's a hot take, so I got to say hot. It's too early. It doesn't feel right. Just like when I was talking with Cam last week, it felt like Labor Day was like 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? Like, it just started.
Labor Day does kind of feel like a while ago. I'm not going to lie.
I think because we had such I don't know what you call it anymore. We had a later summer. Because even into October, like, there were 70. I was sitting in short sleeves at Autzen for the Illinois game last week. It was beautiful. There was an old name for that. I don't know if we can say that old name anymore, of what they call a late summer into October. People who are my age know what I'm talking about. Can't say that name, but it feels like we just got fall weather like 2 weeks ago. And now all of a sudden we're going to start hanging stockings up. And we're going to start, getting the eggnog. You bought eggnog like a month ago.
I bought eggnog before I went to Reno. I bought it September 29th. I'm on my third bottle now.
You're in your third container of eggnog.
I am.
Over, under, and by the way, not a hot take. Eggnog is delicious. I love eggnog. I shall celebrate Christmas parties with eggnog.
Someone gave you a pretty good recipe for some homemade
I'm
stuff,
looking
too.
forward to that. I've got like 3 eggnog recipes. I might try them all this year. What do you think? Over, under? Do you just buy the quart, like the quart carton, or you go half gallon?
No, not half gallon.
Half gallon's too much.
Yeah, whatever was. Again, it's too rich. You have to have it in little, like I said, almost little shots. So it's just a nice little dessert beverage. And hot take, it's never too early to start drinking eggnog.
So how many eggnog? Let's say a quart, right? I would assume you have a quart. How many of those do you think you're going to run through between now and New Year's? Or heck, now and spring break?
Yeah, I'm already kind of starting to get a little burnt, so probably not much longer, maybe one more if that. I'm not a big fan of putting it in coffee. I just like to have it as a little bit of dessert to kind of close out the night. And I'm definitely in on it, but that's my hot take, Justin. It's never too early to start drinking eggnog as I prove that this year.
How many, let's do this, months of the year where you feel it is appropriate to drink eggnog? Clearly September, October, November, December. There's 4. Will you drink eggnog in January?
Yeah, I think it sticks on the shelf usually through January. Will I?
February.
I mean, I can't predict what I'm going to drink in January, Justin. That's I'm like, it's hard to say how if I'm going to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to still be drinking eggnog. Like, yeah, that's.
But you wouldn't turn it down if it was like, hey, a little leftover eggnog in January.
Yep. No, probably not. But yeah, I mean, like. Probably by the time January ends.
Yeah. Valentine's Day rolls around.
That's probably fair, yeah.
So 5 months out of the year, you are pro eggnog. I'm not.
I've also never met anybody who doesn't like eggnog. So
well, here's the thing about eggnog. People say they don't like it because it is a terrible name. It is a terrible name for a drink. You're like, yeah, there's eggs in it, but they're emulsified, and it's,
I think people think eggnog and think deviled eggs. I'm dead serious. And
nog is not a term we use anymore. I think it used to be like a fairly normal thing, like a nog was a kind of a punch, and then the eggnog. It's a terrible name for a delicious beverage, and that was when I was on the bridge. We would do our Christmas special, and it was like every year. I got Brian Noe, I got Jamie Hudson, all these people that said they didn't like eggnog, I'm like, we're going to try it. We're going to try it on the air. And every one of them was like, well, be Galdern, that's delicious. Because it's just, people get hung up on the name.
My middle brother, he has sworn off eggnog for life, literally because of something I did to him as a child, Justin, as when he was like probably, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, and it was around Christmas time, and he wanted milk in his cup. I'm like, let's put some eggnog in there, and he could not stand it. And to this day,
you tricked him into the eggnog.
To this day, it's still like I don't mess with eggnog.
Eggnog trauma's real thing in the Slaughter household, apparently.
Well, I mean, other trauma for like food you don't like, but I don't know who wouldn't like something sweet. Again, I people who don't like eggnog. If you're dairy free, okay, that's the one pass I'll give you. There's a lot of dairy in there. If you're not dairy free,
a lot of sugar too.
I'm like who cares? I'm like, for a couple months out of the year, who cares? I haven't met anybody who doesn't like eggnog. So that's surprising.
Anybody who says they don't like it, they haven't tried it.
If you're not dairy, I get that. It's a lot of dairy, but outside of that, Justin, come on. Come on.
All right, coming up next, we got hour number 3. We got a third hour edition of Make or Miss. We got an RCM mailbag. Also, look back at last night's Thursday night football game, some more college football stuff. That's all next. 620 Rip City Radio.
8 a.m. on a Friday. Brendan Slaughter with you for Rip City Mornings. The New York Jets took down the Houston Texans 21-13 to snap a 5-game losing streak and improve to 3-5 on the year, while the Texans fall to 6-2 on the season. Portland Trailblazers return to action tonight at home at Moda Center against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Tip-off is at 7 o'clock. You can catch the pregame right here at 4:30 on your home of the Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio. We just caught up with Cam Meller last hour. We got Make or Miss coming up this hour. Mailbag, a whole lot more. Last hour, RCM on a Friday coming up.
Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully you are all having a fantastic Friday. Coming up in 20 minutes, we have got a special third-hour edition of Make or Miss. We've also got the RCM mailbag. Saw this yesterday. Bob Costas is retiring from baseball play-by-play. 42 years in the broadcast booth for Bob Costas, and obviously he wasn't doing it on a regular basis. And the internet kind of roasted Bob Costas because he just comes back for the playoffs, and he has his own, I would say, distinct style that people aren't maybe accustomed to. I've always liked Bob Costas, but this is what got me wondering. When I was growing up, you knew a college football game was a big deal because Keith Jackson was calling the college football game. Whoa, Nelly Keith Jackson. That was the voice. That was the guy. You knew that an NBA game was a big deal because Marv Albert was on the call. Yes, and it counts. You knew that a baseball game was a big deal because Bob Costas was on the call. And look, I think more sports on streaming TV, the better. And the fact that I think we are in a time right now where between the internet, between broadcast TV, between streaming services, it's never been easier to watch sports. But I wonder, like, are the days of hearing a particular voice, and I'm not talking about local guys, because I love Jerry Allen, I love Mike Parker. Obviously, Travis Demers is a friend of ours, and of course, when you think of Kevin and Lamar and Brooke and all, like, I'm not talking about the local guys and gals on broadcast. I'm talking about, like, nationally. It used to be, hey, Keith Jackson's calling the Oregon-Washington State game. This is a big deal. Bob Costas is calling the baseball game. This is a playoff thing. Marv Albert is on the call on a Saturday. You know, the NBA on NBC with the awesome round ball rock and the theme song and everything. This is a big deal. I don't know if we're ever going to have kind of that ever again. Not good, not bad. It's just kind of what it is because there are so many distinct voices. It was Joe Buck for a long, long time because Joe Buck would call the biggest NFL game on Sunday on Fox. And then in October, he would call the World Series. Well, when Joe Buck went to ESPN and he went to Monday Night Football, and I like watching the regular Monday Night Football broadcast, but it's interesting. They paid all this money for Joe Buck and for Troy Aikman, and then they're like, oh, yeah, don't forget about the Manning cast, where Eli and Peyton and Bill Belichick are going to be talking over the broadcast. So even then, like, Joe Buck's kind of, diluted a little bit. I know Jim Nantz doesn't do the Final Four anymore. Ian Eagle, who we are lucky enough to have on this particular program each and every March, and he does a great job. But Jim Nantz was kind of the voice of NCAA March Madness, and then obviously into golf. Hello, friends, and Augusta and everything else. But Bob Costas is like that is pure 90s nostalgia for me. When I hear Bob Costas, I think of the Braves winning the World Series in 1995. And yes, that's a bit selfish, but I also the other thing I think of, like, Bob Costas was the Olympics. Bob Costas was obviously the World Series for most of my childhood. Brendan, also Bob Costas was the guy that NBC threw it to during the NBA Finals when OJ was in a Bronco driving along I-5 very, very slowly with Al Cowlings. Could you, like, we're...
Oh, AC. Where is Al Cowlings these days, Justin? That's a great question.
Did he write a book? He had to have written a book, right?
Well, I mean, I don't mean to be, because I'm sure he's a little. I know he is still around.
He's still hanging
I
out
didn't want to assume since the other guy's no longer with
OJ's
us.
gone.
What like, notice how that dude's like, I'm just gonna go, it's gonna go away after 95, and just like,
like I said, I'm shocked he didn't write a book. And maybe he did. I've never heard of it, but everybody else from there wrote a book and got paid off of it. Could you imagine though?
Apparently the last thing he did was sue FX because he did not like his portrayal in the American Crime.
Malcolm Jamal Warner playing
I have no idea.
Tremendous actor.
I don't know why he didn't like
Theo from the show we don't talk about anymore.
Yeah. I would assume that didn't go over very well.
But you've called football games as a student broadcaster. We do this show where we do minimal work to prepare for it, but you come in with an idea of how your day is going to. Could you imagine back in 1994, right? It is Knicks versus Rockets. I believe the series was 2-2. It was a competitive series. Knicks, Rockets, series tied, 2 games apiece, and you're Bob Costas. Now, I don't think he was calling the game. He was doing pregame coverage and halftime coverage. But you go in and you're like, all right, we're definitely going to hit on, Olajuwon versus Ewing, and how's this matchup going? And we definitely got to talk about, could the X Factor be Kenny the Jet Smith, or could it be John Starks? The Knicks, back in the NBA Finals, for the first time since the 70s. And what hey, Bob. Yeah, real quick. I know you did all this prep work on, Patrick Ewing and Akeem Olajuwon and all. O.J. Simpson, who may have murdered his wife, is being driven by his friend in a Bronco, and we're going to have to cut into coverage, and you're going to have to describe it.
Can
you imagine just getting that in your ear?
As crazy as it sounds, Justin, and very different circumstances, the only thing, because we've sat here and said how mind-boggling it is, the only thing that would be in the same breath, and it's still very different, be like if Aaron Hernandez is like, yeah, you're going to chase me on a high-speed chase.
Yeah.
That would have been the only thing that would have been, and even that's different.
It's different because he was nowhere close to as famous as OJ.
And he was acting. He was obviously actively playing, I meant to say, as opposed to being retired.
OJ was acting. He was doing he was Nordberg.
Got to run his Hurts, man. Those Hurts
Gun
commercials.
Movies.
OJ
Nordberg.
I just crazy.
But it's just like, that's when I think of Bob Costas, I think of, obviously, personally, Braves winning the World Series in 95. Awesome. But I think of Olympics almost my entire life. Bob Costas is the one welcoming us to, Barcelona, and then it was Atlanta, and then it was Sydney, Australia. I think of that, and then I think of getting ready to watch the NBA Finals. I'm positive it was Game 5. Positive it was Game 5, NBA Finals. I know exactly where I was because I played a baseball game that day, and we were at Pizza, and they're at a big old school big screen TV. The one that weighed like, I don't know, 10,000 pounds. It felt like if it weighed roughly the size of a half-ton truck. Old school big screen TV at the pizza parlor because we had just played a baseball game. We're going to have pizza. We're going to watch the NBA OJ's running from the cops right now. He may or may not have committed suicide. Bob, you're going to have to break in on this. And then, of course, Bob Costas told the story that, like, OJ tried, because remember, NBC was covering the finals back then. So NBC was the NBA finals. OJ Simpson worked for NBC Sports. Like, OJ Simpson was the sideline reporter for the NBC football game. So he knew the number for the control room, and apparently he had called the control. OJ called the control room because he wanted to talk to Bob Costas to get a message across. Well, they were in New York on location. They were not in the control room. And I guess some engineer like hung up on OJ because they thought it was a prank call. Turns out it wasn't. Could you imagine? It's like, hey, Bob, you know how we're cutting in and this OJ chase, he's on the phone right now.
This must have been before AC called and was like, "This is Al Cowling. OJ's got the weapon and all that." And
I think that was with the police.
Okay.
So the police got OJ's car phone.
Car phone. Great reference, kids.
Yeah, because it wasn't a cell phone. It was a car phone. It was 94.
Great reference, baby.
So they got car phone was like, that was.
They're cool, man.
Lap of luxury.
I have a vivid memory, and Justin is the one thing that keeps me grounded to the fact that I'm not attached to the youth these days. Is the youth would look at me and go, "A car phone? You mean like a phone that's like attached, like a phone that like plugs into?" No.
We call that a cell. Like, so I bet if you told a kid, "Hey, no, it was a car phone," they would think, "Oh, so a phone that's shaped like a car?" It's like, "Oh, so
no kidding."
No, right? No, you know the car you drive? It was bolted in there. The phone was. You couldn't take it out.
It was something,
worked,
man.
Sometimes
it was something.
But who's the because Bob Costas and along with Keith Jackson and I would say Marv Albert, for me, those are the voices of nostalgia for me. Outside of local broadcasters, right? Sean's and Jerry Allen for me. Is there a national guy right now that in 15, 20 years we're going to be like, "Oh, that was the guy"? So like Kevin Harlan, maybe?
Are you specifically saying play-by-play?
Just
because if it's not, I'd say Pat McAfee.
It might be McAfee.
He's at every game for game day now.
Yeah.
Pat McAfee has created and he's not my favorite person. He's a little too much tea for me, if you get what I'm saying. But it's I get where he's created kind of a niche for himself.
Yeah.
And not the same way as like a broadcaster, but like Pat McAfee's been at every single college football game on Friday doing his show, like live from Eugene, live from Indiana. That kind of stuff matters.
I don't know if he's got. I'm with you. He's a huge entity. I don't know if he's got the longevity, but yeah, I don't know. I was just wondering, like, I hear Bob Costas, and I know some people raked him over the coals because he's a little rusty in calling some of those playoff. That's just the voice of nostalgia for me. Like, that is every big time baseball game in the 90s. Like, oh, Bob Costas is going to be on the call. I would think Joe Buck might be the guy, but
he's probably there.
But even still,
it's interesting because correct me if I'm wrong, Bob Costas didn't Joe Buck. Joe Buck had the benefit of his dad being a Hall of Fame announcer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Bob Costas had that. And not to say that that's not the case, like it's not a knock on Joe Buck, but I think everyone just kind of assumed he would be in the career for a very long time because, Dad was.
Hey, want $1,000? Awkward transition, I know, but we're running out of time. Rip City Radio giving you $1,000 cash for the sixth man. That is you. Listen for keywords coming up here in just a moment. And every weekday between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. on the 15s for your chance to win $1,000 13 times a day. All the details at ripcityradio.com. Third hour edition of Make or Miss is next, 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, don't forget, next week, it's another chance to win a pair of Blazer tickets. It is Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday here on 620 Rip City Radio, each and every Tuesday from 3 to 6 on Rip City Drive with Chad and Dwight. Your chance to win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blazers home game. It is Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. You can also purchase single game tickets at trailblazers.com, like the game tonight, Blazers taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder as they come to town here in the early stages of the 24/25 Blazer season. We had Cam Miller in hour number 2, so we pulled the old switcheroo, which means it is now time for Make or Miss in the third hour. Let's fire it up.
All right, firing up Make or Miss. Very much like bringing Frankenstein back to life. The Jets are alive.
The Jets are alive. It's true. They've got a pulse. It's faint.
Garrett
It's faint,
Wilson-
but they got a pulse.
Garrett Wilson basically was like sticking his head up from like the grave to get that touchdown catch, Justin.
Well, and
like basically it was like,
let's be honest. If Captain Clueless doesn't drop the football at the 1, they blow out last night. It should have been 28-13, and that's a blowout in the NFL. So let's do my favorite thing. Let's take a look at some schedules. So now the Jets, it's their third win of the season. They're 3-6, but couple of things. They go to Arizona. They're not going to be favored in that game. Do you think they'll be favored in that game? I think that's
where is it?
It's at Arizona.
Yeah,
That's got 1.5, 2.5 written all over it, Arizona.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's not like they're playing the Eagles or the Chiefs, right? They're going to they're going to the Cardinals.
Have you turned around on the Eagles? Because they're
Yeah, I was wrong on the Eagles.
okay.
I was wrong about the
because
Eagles.
a couple weeks ago you were like, I don't know if the Eagles are going to make it.
I
So-
was saying it in the summer that I thought the Eagles were going to be the most disappointing team, the team that we thought was going to be good that was not. I was wrong.
Turns out it's the Cowboys.
Boy, who is the most?
For me, it's the Cowboys.
All right, make
For
or
me,
miss. The
yeah.
Cowboys are the most disappointing team in the first half. I think it's the Jets, right?
Yeah,
They
it's-
won, but they're 3-6. Like the Jets are pretty disappointing from what we thought they might be.
Cowboys are still only 3-4 for now.
Who did
Like we knew the Giants were going to be terrible. We knew the Panthers would be like nobody else surprising in a bad way. In the NFC, we knew the Titans wouldn't be good.
But the Cowboys are on the road against the Falcons. They
Yeah,
I guess
think that-
injuries don't factor in, but the Dolphins pretty disappointing. The Bengals kind of disappointing.
Would the Dolphins be if Tua didn't?
That's
get
what I'm
hurt?
saying.
Yeah.
Throw injuries in there.
Yeah, I think it's Cowboys or Jets. It's
Yeah.
pretty easy, man.
It probably
take
is.
one of the two. Take
Cowboys,
your pick.
Cowboys or Jets.
Take your pick. Rough.
But the Jets have a pulse. But no, I was wrong about Philadelphia. I really thought losing Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox was gonna hurt them. And I am a bit of a drama queen. I can't get enough of gossip. I can't get enough of drama. And when you heard all the rumblings that maybe Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni weren't on the same page, and they didn't really get out to the greatest start, I was like, whoa, Philly's fine.
Did Fletcher Cox just he just retired? I
That's
was
what I'm
like,
saying,
I
yeah.
thought he left, but I was like, oh.
No, him and Jason Kelsey, that's
They retired
a
together.
lot of veteran presence on an
Right.
offensive line that was pretty much your calling card for 3 years, right? They don't do the tush-push without the offensive line. And
You're great point. And they've done well.
so that's why I thought they
yeah.
were going to be bad. They're not bad. They're
Yeah,
good.
that tush push has started to figure itself out in recent weeks. I think Jalen Hurts had something like 3 rushing touchdowns this last week. So
Yeah.
he's definitely starting to figure that out. But nevertheless, yeah.
So you got back to the Jets at the Cardinals, coin flip type game. Did the Colts get a little Joe Flacco honeymoon? Right? Does that last for 2 weeks?
I think he's going to win him some games. So probably that division's so bad, he's going to take them to the playoffs.
So
they'll
they go
win that division, especially with Jonathan Taylor.
Cardinals, Colts, Seahawks, Dolphins, Jags, Rams in the next 6 games. I know it's the NFL. You can say, oh, any one of those games are winnable. I mean, they just beat the Texans, but those are winnable games. And then you go at Buffalo. And then you get the Dolphins again at home to finish out the season. So let's just say in those 6 games, you got to go, 4-2?
I think
4-2 puts you at 7-8 before you get Buffalo and Miami to end the season. You got a chance.
You probably need to go 9-8 to make it. So that's that. I don't know, Justin.
Yeah, because the AFC has got. You got a lot of really good teams.
Yeah, like we'll see. Never count out cayenne pepper water. Apparently that just changes everything for somebody.
You're right. The whole time.
So, I don't know, Justin. Maybe
I didn't put any cayenne pepper in my fancy coffee this morning. Maybe that's why.
I mean, I don't know. You see me with my hydro every day. Maybe I should just start putting some cayenne pepper in this and, just.
I dare you to do it one time.
Would you really?
Yeah.
I've never done it. I'm just purely being kind of a funny little guy right now.
I like spicy food. I really do. I put cayenne pepper. Like I make my own little like a chicken seasoning thing that has cayenne pepper in it. I have also, when it comes to soup season, and I make a chili, which chili is soup. I crank it up. Like, I get the heat going. So I use a lot of cayenne pepper. Never thought to do it with water.
So my thought with that is, Justin, we love to go to this show for our go-tos anyway. Do you remember the weight loss episodes of The Office?
Yeah,
where Kelly was drinking the cayenne pepper, honey, and water. And she's
it was a Beyonce thing. Like, everybody knew that 15 years ago.
Well, she's like, I feel like death.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, I just drink cayenne pepper, honey, and water every day. And it's just like,
yeah.
Yeah, I that was, like, before this, I swear, like, that was the only, like, reference I ever had for this. Justin and I talked about it. I thought if you wanted to just lose weight, you just go on the Rob Lowe Atkins diet. But.
Yeah, well.
I saw a commercial again yesterday, Justin.
But like the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, I understand why people want to be critical of modern medicine. I get it, all right? There's a lot of that. Big Pharma doesn't have a great track record when you look back at some stuff. So I understand that, but to think you just realized, I put cayenne pepper in water and I feel great. Save it. That being said, there's a pulse. There's a pulse there for the Jets. It's faint. It doesn't mean that if they go and lose to the Cardinals and lose to the Colts in the next 2 weeks that pull the plug. But for another week, they got life. They got life. And, I mean, like I said, they scored 21 points. They should have scored 28 points, but they dropped the ball at the one, literally dropped the ball at the one. I mean, maybe the offense is starting to figure some things out. Who knows? And like you said, was it Hassan Reddick back? Like,
that guy was...
C.J. Stroud was running for his life last night.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely running for his life last night. And when he doesn't have a go-to receiver... So... was last night's game more about the Jets having a chance, or is it more about the Texans sitting at 6-3 might be some fool's gold?
No, I really do think that once the Texans get a couple guys back from injury, it's going to be...
Is Stephon Diggs done for the year?
He is.
His ACL, right?
But you get Nico Collins back next week. He was leading the NFL in receiving yards prior to going down with a hamstring.
Mm-hmm.
I really do think that... And again, Joe Mixon's maybe been the best running back in the NFL that nobody's talking about this year. He was solid again last night, another game over 100 yards. So, like, I do think that, like, again, 6-3, like, this was a game where I think the Texans kind of just acquiesced and were like, we have no one for C.J. Stroud to throw to. It's going to be a rough game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a short week, all that stuff. I'm not worried about them long-term at all. I think they'll
I tried not to
walk away with that division.
Yeah, they're going to walk away with it. You're right. I try not to put too much stock into Thursday night games.
It's true.
You know what I mean? I mean, look, it's the NFL, and a win's a win, and a loss is a loss, and you are what your record is and all that stuff. But, yeah, I've been burned once or twice watching a Thursday night game, going like, "Oh, they're terrible," and it's like, no, they just had a bad Thursday.
Yeah,
night.
I mean,
They had a bad Thursday night.
to your point, like I said, I mentioned to you when we were talking about it last week. What a like before Thursday night football last week, the Rams were like, yeah, we might trade Cooper Kupp, might even trade Stafford if it's the right deal. They go and beat the 5-1 Vikings, and now it's, oh yeah, Cooper Kupp, he was never on the market.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and Puka Nacua sounds like he might be coming back. They don't think he's going to have a serious
that was huge. I mean,
of a knee injury.
Practice injuries, man, they stink. And I heard a lot of people were kind of pearl clutching yesterday because I just told you last week, Justin, he's one of my favorite guys to watch play. And I'm not going to lie, maybe the best hair since your best friend. It's up
Nacua?
there. It's up there, dude. He's. I'm assuming you saw this last week when it was coming out of his helmet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Puka's really worked on that hair, man. He's obviously got the Polynesian aspect, a little bit of it too, and yeah, man, like cool hair, plays tough.
Yeah,
I like Puka, man.
They go to Seattle this week.
It's gonna be a dandy of a game, absolute dandy for two teams that are gonna really need it.
Boy, he could really change the trajectory of a season of one team or
Big
the
time.
other. Because you're right. If the Rams lose, do they go back to? Do we start pulling the plug on certain guys?
Is it
The
trade
NFL's going to start getting real fun.
trade deadline's Tuesday, right? So that's coming right up quick. So
Not anything else going on Tuesday, right?
No, it's trade deadline.
Trade deadline. Oh, wait. There's a huge thing going on Tuesday. College football playoff first rankings.
That too.
Are on Tuesday.
That too. That's all.
yeah, nothing
That's all.
else though.
That's all. That's all.
So we got this.
It's like Porky Pig. That's all, folks.
That's all.
Nothing else.
Did Porky Pig, did he get canceled?
Wait, did he really?
No, I'm
okay,
saying,
I was going to say.
Is that insensitive to people who have a stutter, the whole Porky Pig thing?
I mean,
Would he be allowed to be a cartoon character today with the stutter?
probably not.
I
Probably
think-
not.
man,
If I'm being truthfully
I
honest
think
with
about
you,
I think about all the Looney Tunes and like, man, a lot of them they wouldn't be around today.
although I'll say this, and if it was Disney,
Yosemite
absolutely
Sam,
not.
no chance.
Disney, absolutely not. Warner Brothers, they're always been a little edgier, so maybe Warner Brothers would have kept it going, man.
Elmer Fudd, nope, he's
no,
not allowed.
Definitely not walking around with a double-barrel shotgun
Yeah.
anymore and a kids show. Don't think that's happening. Just like I can say that.
Roadrunner Coyote, probably not.
Just I'm hunting rabbits. No, I'm playing with rabbits. Is probably now what it would be. I'm bringing them carrots. We're playing together.
But yeah, college football playoff rankings and the trade deadline. That's it. That's all happening on Tuesday. Nothing else.
Nothing else at all. All right, let's have this
By
discussion.
the way, I voted. Quit sending me stuff. I'm just
my gosh, my
not that anybody's gonna hear this, but like
my recycle. Ugh.
I know this candidate's too dangerous. Oh, I voted. Quit sending me the stuff.
Well, I told you that the text message that I got, I don't know how they got my number, but for one of the measures, someone texted me and said, Brendan, can we count on your vote for no or for yes? And I just replied to the text, I voted no. And then it just stopped.
I just say
texting me. So
stop.
that was kinda nice.
If you I just stop.
Well,
I do not want to receive any more
I was
text
trying to be a
messages.
little snarky, Justin. They sent me like 4 texts in a row, and I was like, yeah, how about just I tell your AI I voted no? And then what?
The amount of like cardboard mailers
Oh, my
that I am
goodness
just
gracious,
getting
yes.
loaded down with. I was like, hey, hay's in the barn for me. I've already mailed in the ballot. It's over. We're done.
I'm with you. So my question to you, Justin, because you told me something kind of fascinating a couple weeks ago. Does your recycling only come once a week too?
Yeah, recycling's once a week. Garbage is once every 2 weeks.
Okay, so you do get rid of your okay. That I was just curious because I went home and I was telling my my people, I'm like, I was shocked that Justin only gets his garbage picked up
Every 2 weeks.
and that's not a U selection. That is a
Portland
that's-
Metro Multnomah County. I don't know if it's a county thing. I know it's a Portland thing.
Do you have a much bigger can
No,
to compromise for that?
I have a big recycling bin, small garbage bin. They do that because they want you to recycle everything.
Wow. Yeah.
And I do. I'm an avid recycler. Just the one time the thing was up by about 8 inches and I got a $6 fine. And I'm like, Yeah, because there's no garbage just dumped everywhere in our city in certain places.
It's kind of crazy.
I was
couldn't
so
even.
frustrated.
I said that's tougher because like everywhere that I've lived, being here in Corvallis, always been the days have changed, but always once a week.
Oh, usually, but yeah, garbage every 2 weeks.
Interesting.
Because they don't want you throwing stuff away.
Interesting.
They want you recycling it.
All right, let's close out.
Which
here.
I'm for.
Yeah.
I'm for the planet. I'm for clean water and clean air and all that. Just if my garbage thing is up by about 8 inches, let's not charge me $6.
Can I?
It's all in there.
I 100% believe full-heartedly with you, Justin. Now, can we get the other economies that have like 4 times as many people as America to recycle? Then maybe we'd see an impact.
It's a tougher
from it.
task.
Just throwing that out there.
We
can
gotta
all
do our part.
recycle all we want.
We gotta think globally and act locally, Brendan. We gotta do our part.
Let's go ahead and close on this. This will be fun. Garrett Wilson's catch is almost as good as Odell's.
Okay,
almost. I ride for Odell.
Odell's was better in this sense, the fact that it was, 3 fingers it felt like he had on the football. Now, does Garrett Wilson's maybe creep in there because he was being actively defended? Odell Beckham's was that Eli Manning threw the ball? But I don't believe he was being actively defended.
He was because they threw the flag when Odell
that's right.
Yep, they threw the flag for pass interference when Odell got it. I only know because I just looked at this clip before I wrote this make or miss, so it's fresh in the
They're
mind.
both awesome.
They're
both just awesome. I would probably still give the tip of the cap to Odell Beckham Jr., but I watched that catch last night, and I gave a holy S out loud, and I was watching the game by myself, and I was like, oh my.
So let me ask you this.
And then I thought, I'm like, there's no way from Monday Night Football to Thursday Night Football, that's 4 days that we're going to see the double tap.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
That 2 great catches be wiped away. No, he got apparently his calf touched or his shin, and good. That should have been a catch. George Pickens should have been a catch as well.
I know.
But that one should have been a catch, and it was unbelievable.
So let me ask you this.
As good as you're ever going to get.
Considering that Eli, very twilight. That might have been Eli's last year starting.
I think so.
Aaron Rodgers, who do you think threw a better ball? Eli in his age-old season or Aaron Rodgers in his age-old season?
Like that particular one throw or just
And I think because you look, both guys had to really go out and extend to get it. I think I'd give the nod to Odell because Odell had to pull it back from out of bounds.
Yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers threw a better pass.
Yes, I agree.
Because he put it right between his guy and the defender, so both were awesome.
And you can kind of remember this, Justin. Like, I don't mean to. Again, I love Eli. I like watching the Monday Manning cast. Justin, Eli couldn't really throw the ball downfield there at the end. Like, I remember the end of Eli. It was not a pretty picture. Like, I know Giants fans are, bemoaning Daniel Jones right now. Go back and look at why Odell demanded a trade out of New York to begin with. Is like the last year or so with Eli was rough. He didn't have his brother where it's like, hey, Denver defense, swan song me to the Super Bowl, man. Eli's like, oh.
I remember at that time, and I'll wrap it up with this. Like,
shoot. Yeah, go for it.
Steph Curry was, in terms of most popular players among the kids, Steph Curry was number one. You could have made a case that Odell Beckham Jr. for a while there was like one of the most, and it just went.
They
gone.
made the Madden video game, Justin, around him that year.
I know.
And literally was like.
And then it just went away.
And it was like every kid's like, oh my gosh, I got to learn how to do the Odell catch. I mean, Justin, I was a freshman in college, and I remember being like, let's go outside and throw the ball and try to recreate that.
Yeah,
like,
we all tried to do the Michael Jordan, like, lay-in or, like, Michael Jordan fadeaway. It's like,
what? Yeah, crazy.
All right, hey, $1,000 cash for the sixth man. That's what we want to give you here on Rip City Radio. $1,000 cash for the sixth man. You need to listen for keywords each and every weekday from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the 15th for a chance to win $1,000. 13 times a day. All the details at ripcityradio.com. RCM mailbag next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, let's wrap up the big show and get ready for the weekend ahead. And we do that the same way each and every day with the RCM mailbag, random questions, any subject, any topic. The big voice is going to tell you the same thing, so let's not waste any more time and open up the mailbag.
All right, Justin, firing a big mailbag today. You were just talking about it, so tell me why you don't care for armavitas.
As a plant,
Yes, or just decor outside in a house, because
way too much work for not that much flash, I guess I will say.
Sure.
They're very hard to maintain. And if you don't maintain them, they overgrow and they wreck stuff. So yeah, these are all fun things you have to learn as a homeowner. Previous owner put in arborvitaes. And it's like, great. They look cool. Yeah, if you don't trim them back and if you don't keep on them, they will take over fences and siding and everything else. Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan of them.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because when you mentioned that, I was just curious because I think all but the one I'm in now, my childhood home had armavitas. You drive past it; they are almost taller than the house now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we don't live there, but they're still
Yeah,
there.
good luck to whoever does because they got to trim them up.
My second childhood house that I grew up in still has armavitas there too. So yeah, I think the old Slaughter family was kicking it with the armavitas. I'll say this, Justin, I never needed to do any of the trimming and work.
Yeah,
with it, so,
it's not
it was
fun.
Just, they smell good.
They do, and they look okay if you keep them. But if I had it my way, I would rip them right out of the ground. But they are right on the fence line, and my neighbor's very nice neighbors next door. And it separates my garage from her fence. But if I could, I'd rip them right out of the ground. Just rip them right out.
You say that you have rhododendrons though, which we
got all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a garden.
Yeah.
I got a garden in the back. I got planter boxes out front. I got mums. I got all sorts of stuff. I got trees. I got a magnolia tree. I got a Japanese maple tree. I got them all. Got them all, man.
Every time I say that, it's only the real ones will know, Justin. But I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say there's probably a lot of rhododendrons in Rhododendron, Oregon.
Yeah, buddy. It's not just a clever name.
Just gonna go. As a kid, I'm just always like, oh, yeah, it's past time. This little town going to Mount Hood. What is it named after? A plant.
100%.
Which is kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. But
that'd be funny if there was no rhododendrons there, and they're just like, yeah, we just call it that.
That'd be even funnier, right? All right, let's continue here on the mailbag, Justin. Yesterday, I threw out some cool numbers with acting as far as like how much actors make and whatnot. There was one thing we didn't get to as a part of that I want to conclude up today. This is very random, but just as far as movies, this is the last stat they track. Movies that actors have been in, not their money, but just how much the movies have made over time.
Uh-huh.
Do you know who number one is?
So is it single, like...
It counts all the movies.
So one actor in the most money made of all time.
Yes.
Is it Tom Hanks?
No. Good guess, though.
Wow.
Great guess.
Okay, so is it Mark Hamill?
No.
Because I figured Mark Hamill's in all the Star Wars. They made like $1 gajillion.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised with this one. As far as just who's like, say, this person's been in 40 movies and those 40 movies add up to be this much. So technically per this, no one person has seen his movies, not, that he's been in make more money. Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, well, he's in a lot of movies. That's a very good pull.
Samuel L.
Jackson is in a ton of movies, and 1 out of every 4 is like a big, gigantic blockbuster. So
and again, it kind of cheats, and Justin's going to go, there's the comic books coming out.
Well, the comic book movies are,
there's like 5 guys, or 5, I should say 5 people, 2 women, of course, 5 people who just blow away the rest. It's very close. Samuel L. Jackson, Scarlett Johansson.
That's the Avengers stuff, right?
Yes.
She's in the Avengers?
Yes.
Who is she?
Black Widow.
Black Widow.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Robert Downey Jr.
But Iron Man.
Zoe Saldana. which is intriguing. Our lioness, our resident lioness.
Is that all from Avatar?
Avatar, and then she's also in Marvel too. So double dip for
Okay.
Zoe. I told you yesterday she don't need lioness. She really don't. And then Chris Pratt, our very own Seattle guy, and it's like all the Marvel stuff.
Yeah, that's all the comic book stuff. It
Moneyball,
just
and
shows
then
all that comic book stuff.
Jurassic World made a lot of money
Oh
too.
yeah, he's in the Jurassic World.
Yeah, buddy.
So you take the Guardians of the Galaxy. Hot take, wasn't very good. Sorry, wasn't. And then you get all the Jurassic World. The OG was, I thought, awesome because as a Jurassic Park nerd as I am, they opened up the park, right? They did it. Everybody that watched that movie was like, what would it have been like if they actually opened up the park? Well, they did it. I didn't see any others after that. I felt like, let me guess. They're gonna do something, and then they're gonna go a step too far, and then Mother Nature is gonna fight back, and they're gonna learn a lesson, but also chase down some dinosaurs. There's a pretty nice little, just like every Rocky movie has got like certain beats, like all the Jurassic Park movies, like, hey, we can make dinosaurs. You shouldn't make dinosaurs, but we can.
Let's do it anyway.
And then we're going to go too far and not pay attention to clear red flags. And they made five movies after about that.
To answer your question real quick, Tom Hanks comes in 11th. Most of his money, ironically, coming from Toy Story 3 and 4. So, Toy Story still pretty big deal, man.
I bet you if you went back, and I could be wrong, and went on ticket sales as opposed to box office, I bet Tom Hanks is somewhere.
He's got to be up there.
Up at the top of the list.
100%.
All right, that's going to do it for The Big Show. Thanks to Cam Meller. Thanks to super producer Brendan. Thanks to all of you. Have a terrific weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday morning, 620, Rip City Radio.